Hello everybody, today we're going to look at the game of Pragg versus Yavakir Sendarov. So Pragg opens with d4, probably going to play Queen's Gambit. It's exactly what he does. Queen's Gambit declined. Knight develops, both knight develop, and the defense with the pawn on c6. So you build this pyramid against this pawn, so this is not scary. And here Pragg plays a really crazy move, Queen d3. If you look at the openings, look at all these moves. Queen d3 is the sixth most common move out of almost 50,000 games. It's only played less than 500 times. So that's definitely his prep. Queen d3. And we already see that Sendarov thinks for 6 minutes. And he just develops a knight. Now Pragg just develops his bishop. He's still in his prep. h6. Just stopping anything from going to this square after the trade. Maybe prepare b4. Just a useful move. And now that's why he put the queen on d3, so he can play e4. But instead of taking the e pawn, whereafter they would trade, takes the c pawn, the queen takes. But now Pragg has this big center. He has developed his knights to the most natural squares, and his bishop is active. Meanwhile, black light squared bishop is blocked in. His knights are a bit awkward, but it's alright. We see the move b4 here, attacking the queen drops back, and now b5. It was better to play something like queen a5, getting the queen active, and maybe play for stuff like this in the future, but instead he plays b4 and b5. But now the knight goes to the a5 square. Trying to look at these squares, can always be defended with b3. The bishop develops, so now it's not a threat to go here. It kind of is, because after take I can take in the center. So the rook comes to the c file, so he can just take and win this pawn, or with the knight. The bishop develops, because he just wants the castle, and now the knight reroutes, because it wants to maybe get in over there. Now we see this move c5, but knight takes, also defending the pawn. But that's also why he played this move, because that also defends the pawn. So after knight takes, he plays pawn takes, because this is now a pass pawn, and he wants to push it all the way down. Rook blocks, and the bishop just defends the pawn. A better move here was something like c6, just pushing the pawn, because after the bishop takes, let's say bishop takes, there's queen takes a6, putting pressure all around, and then you can create a pass on the outside, which is much better. And after rook takes, you just play rook takes, bishop takes, and then you take the pawn. But instead of that, he played his bishop to defend the pawn. Slight inaccuracy, but Sendarov, this is the move he should have played. He just takes the pawn, whereafter Pragg takes and moves his queen out with a double threat, a triple threat actually. But he could have played a much better move, knight to d7, because now he has to play something like queen h5, but the knight is just really nice controlling the pawn. And c6, you might say, doesn't it work now? But you can actually just castle, because the pawn is pinned. But knight takes, bishop takes, and the queen comes out. This already looks very nice for white. But one, it's not really a threat, but should you take this pawn, yes or no? If you said yes, it's not losing, but after the bishop comes, you have to move your queen, because the rook is also defended. So let's say you go to g4, or maybe it's more logical to go to g3. Now you lose this pawn, wherever you have to lose the rook, and now to something like queen f6, defending the bishop, developing the queen, maybe king d2, attacking the queen like that. It's just a good position for black. So that's why Pragg takes the other pawn, which is also a mistake. What he should have played is just a rook to d1 attacking the queen, putting up the pressure. And after something like queen a5, now queen takes g6 because there is no bishop f6. Because you would just lose the bishop. So then he has to move the rook, and now he can't castle anymore. So this is a really pleasant position. But instead he took the pawn, and now there's this move queen f6, winning the pawn back because you're pinned. He just plays this move, bit of a weird move, but he's just blocking in the bishop. So this pawn doesn't hang when he develops his bishop, but it's kind of weakening on this diagonal. The king is in the center, destabilizes the bishop, so I don't really like it. But now the bishop just develops, a5, queen moves, the bishop gets to a more active square, and he also castles. Bishop activates, rook defends the pawn, a5, rook b1, queen comes to the center, queen trade is offered, he doesn't take, attacking the queen, another queen trade, no, he repeats the move, say draw, no, you just did that to get a bit of bonus time. That's a nice trick. You repeat the position 2 times, so you get your extra bonus time, and then you figure out what to do. The rook attacks the queen, queen goes to look at this side of the board. Now b4, a good move because you would have had 2 passed pawns, so he has to take. Now the bishop comes to here, threatening this pawn, you just push it. Queen comes back, looking to infiltrate, but b4, b5, and these pawns are just too strong. Defended by the rook and the queen, and the rook and the bishops. This is just such a dominating position. But Sindarov doesn't give up, because it's that kind of a time scramble, so he's looking for counterplay. The bishop drops all the way back, and now the bishop moves here, sacrificing itself, because after you take, you have f takes e4, and your king is way too weak. So you can take the bishop. Pragg didn't take the bishop, he just pushed his pawn. Now the other bishop attacks the queen, queen moves up, ready to push the pawn, again taking the queen, and now he wins the rook, but that's okay because these pawns are just gonna promote. Queen trade, he offers a queen trade because after take, nothing is gonna stop these pawns from promoting. He pushes, attack the rook, and now after queen c5, Sindarov resigned because his bishop is hanging, and if the bishop moves somewhere here, you win this and you would just win the rook. And if the bishop stays on the diagonal, so after this you lose this pawn, you can attack this bishop, and if they take, you take back, and no one is gonna stop the pawn from winning. So that's why in this position he resigned. Pragg won, he's 3 out of 4, he's looking good for the tournament. He's up there with Najibek and Arjun, so I hope you all enjoyed the game of the Superstar with a 93.5 accuracy, really nice. And I see you all in the next video. Check out my other videos. I hope you've learned something from this game, maybe something about the opening, with this crazy queen d3 move, preparing e5 after developing the bishop to f4. So have a great day, goodbye.